Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations and your assignment today. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at Jupiter retrograde, and this is for the 20th of June to the 18th of October 2021. So I hope that you're all well and that this video finds you at a place in your life, as always, that feels that you have the potential and the possibility to step into a state of empowerment. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to cover in this video that I think speak to the way that we can take advantage or use or access the potential of this transit. And I want to share that with you. But before I go ahead and tell you about all of the fun stuff that I think could be supportive to us with this Jupiter retrograde, I just want to make one announcement quickly. For those of you that are watching this video for the first time, this video is part of a playlist, and that playlist contains Saturn retrograde, Mercury retrograde, lunar eclipse that just recently happened in Sag, an overview video, this video, and the solar eclipse video as well. So if you haven't watched any of those other videos, I do encourage you to go and check them out. You'll see the link to the playlist in the comments section, and this is purposely done this way because if I were to sit and create one video for the entire eclipse portal and all of these planets, I'd sit here for like 4 hours just sharing stuff, and it's better to kind of break it up into smaller pieces. And if you watch all of them and you synthesize them all together, you'll see how this big picture is actually unfolding and what's really available for us at a deeper level. Okay, so that's that. I've got my notes here of what I want to talk about in this video. So let me just talk a little bit about Jupiter retrograde's dates. As you can see on the screen, that's when Jupiter will be in a retrograde period. Jupiter is currently in Pisces at the moment. On the 28th of July, Jupiter will move into Aquarius. So we move back into Aquarius, and obviously it will continue its retrograde path all the way up until, if I'm not mistaken, 16, 17 degrees of Aquarius. Now that's significant because remember in December last year, Saturn and Jupiter made a conjunction in Aquarius, okay? And of course that has set an entire 6-month period of these two planets playing around in the Aquarius vibration, all right? Now both of these planets, Saturn and Jupiter, are the reflections. So I'm trying to find the best way to describe this. I would say, okay, let's talk about it in this way. The archetypes of the way that we as human beings take our personal ideas and beliefs and match them with the culture's ideas and beliefs, okay? So Jupiter is the culture's ideas and beliefs and your ideas and beliefs, okay? Saturn is the way in which you give permission for your boundaries to exist and what you consider to be right and wrong, right? And where those boundaries are, your sense of authority and definition and laws. But it is also the culture's boundaries, definitions, and laws that it enforces, right? So when you have these two planets sort of conjoining together, what you have is a mixture of culture and its laws reshaping itself, and the way that people individually are also going through that revolution inside of themselves. Now, because it's part of Aquarius, both of these planets themselves will speak a lot to this energetic impulse to liberate and break out of a pattern or a series of patterns or something that has been anchored into our awareness of life, right? These Aquarius is the impulse to break them, to look beyond the patterns, okay? So the way that we would experience and feel Jupiter and Saturn through Aquarius is interacting with our life and then consistently recognizing where a pattern or a limitation is revealing to us that we want to outgrow it, and we will feel like, wow, that's very frustrating. I want to grow out of this, right? The impulse to grow out of something that is limiting you. And it's a mixture between unconscious limitations that you hold and conscious ones. And it's just a dance between life presenting you with scenarios and situations and circumstances in which that becomes more conscious, these limitations, okay? So you'll see in the other videos, and including the solar eclipse or the eclipse portal, what we are wanting to present to you and put across to you is how these eclipse patterns are specifically pointing towards our language structure and our deep held beliefs, right? And the interface between the two. So what beliefs do you have, right? South Node in Sagittarius, Jupiter, and what ways of language do you use to communicate those ideas? And where is the limitation within those ideas that are preventing you from even deeper states of self-understanding, self-realization, and self-actualization, okay? So that being the thread and the theme. So I wrote down some things here that I felt was really, really interesting. Jupiter is the planet that is associated with the South Node. Mercury is the planet that is associated with the North Node. We have both of those patterns, North and South Node, in Sag Gemini, okay? And Mercury will go direct 2 days after Jupiter goes retrograde. So we have the switch over between the Gemini North Node and the Sagittarius South Node, all right? And the way I see this, or the way that we've been interpreting this, which is actually pretty fascinating, to be honest. In the Mercury retrograde video, I talked to you about that when Mercury goes retrograde, what essentially happens to us is that our gathering function, Mercury, goes offline. So we stop collecting things that are new for us, and we go into a deep state of self-reflection around the information that we have gathered over the last 4 months when Mercury was direct. So we'd be processing what the last 4 months were. And we would then develop through this reflective state of processing, intuitive understanding and insight and truth about experiences that you've had. So let's say you started a new job, for instance, during the last 4 months, you would get insight about the way that the job happened or the way that your previous employment took place, whatever that might be. You'd get some insights, you'd get clarity, okay? Now, we're in a phase right now where Jupiter's still direct, Mercury is retrograde, but when this crossover happens, we'll be going from these insights and truths that are materializing in your awareness, they will now become, when Jupiter goes retrograde, they will become patterns of thinking that over the Jupiter retrograde period will begin to influence your life. So now we're in a phase of getting insight and clarification, but when Jupiter goes retrograde, we will start to look at those ideas and those beliefs and those insights and not necessarily implement them in a very forward-moving way, but we will definitely be living more in accordance with those insights. At least that's the potential. So you'll start to see that your language structure is changing with Mercury, but when Jupiter goes retrograde, your actual belief ideas will begin to now change because the information you've gotten through this Mercury retrograde will impact these subconscious beliefs. So that's what that switch over will do. And for all of us, you don't need, like, the astrology is great in the sense that you can look at it where it's happening in your life, like 3rd house or 9th house as an example. But I'd actually go ahead and say, start paying attention to what's happening in your actual reality. Start noticing the patterns in your life, like look at your life, look at your day, and feel what you are emotionally feeling towards your reality. Start noticing where your ideas or your beliefs that you hold about something or a situation is impacting the way you experience your day, right? Because that's where the real kind of illumination will come from. And we've spent a long period of time of our psychological and emotional conditioning looking outside of ourselves for for answers in textbooks, etc., and not really paying attention so much to the immediacy of what you're actually feeling and sensing in your life. And I feel like that dimension of reality could provide quite a lot of understanding around these transits and transitions that we're actually experiencing. So just an idea I'm throwing out there. If it lands for some people, fantastic. If not for others, that's okay as well. Okay, so I'm going to go through these 3 points that I felt were really important to convey. These are my ideas I want to put out there, and then we'll jump onto the chart. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is the relationship between Uranus and Saturn. Now, somebody that you'll know who you are. You asked me, what is the significance of the Uranus-Saturn square throughout 2021? And I would say that the most significant and very short answer to that is our cultural, like the substructure of and foundation of the way that we as human beings perceive and define reality is being completely revolutionized and reorganized. So think of it as if you're standing on a floor, a wooden floor, and all of a sudden from beneath your feet, without you understanding where it's coming from, the floor and the foundation starts to kind of, become unstable. And you start to notice that the substructure of what keeps you safe and what makes you feel, comfortable is now becoming more present. You're starting to become alarmed, and you start to notice that your, sympathetic nervous system comes into play. You're a lot more conscious of it. You're paying attention. That's what that transit's doing. It is shaking the substructure of our way in which we see reality, and it is also, through natural effect, restructuring the way that we as human beings consider our experience in life on Earth. So we're starting to see things from a non-sleeping state, because we're now becoming a little more jolted, right? And you can see that in the world right now with the pandemic and such. A lot of uncomfortableness is coming to the surface. So I actually encourage you to become comfortable in the uncomfortable as a state of igniting adaptation, meaning that if we stay in a homeostasis state and we're comfortable with the things, we never grow outside of what we're comfortable with. And this energy between Uranus and Saturn saying, no, it's time to revolutionize, it's time to innovate, it's time to radically change the stratosphere and the substructure of our world. And we're not going to pay attention unless there's something really, really kind of uncomfortable going on. So think of it in terms of how can I evolve, or how can I change and adapt according to the situations that I'm having at this point in time. And so that being the background, Jupiter retrograde is sort of like bleeds through here in the sense that it's pointing towards what ideas and beliefs do you have about the old world, or the homeostasis state of being that you perceive your world through. How are those beliefs becoming more and more outdated? You can't solve the problem with the same thinking, essentially, right? So one of the things that I wanted to put across here, and this comes from James Hollis. If you don't know who James Hollis is, I highly encourage you to go and YouTube, Google James Hollis. He's got some incredibly profound content, and he's one of my favorite Jungian psychologists or psychotherapists, but he doesn't follow the threads that is very traditional. He's got his own nature to it, and I just love his content so much. And he talks about in his book called The Meaning of Life, and this is his latest book, right? And he talks about one of the things as sin, right? Missing the mark, right? And in our culture, ideas, beliefs, truths, Jupiter, in our culture, there's this internalized image that we have about ourselves. And it's deeply rooted in a more underlying, very subtle truth or belief that we hold about ourselves, okay? And it is that we need perfection. That unless something is completely perfect, it's not worth expressing, putting out there, doing, interacting with. And what it leads us to is two things: stagnation, an unactualized creative force, And two, it also puts us in the state that we are, if we're not doing it perfectly, how will we be received? What happens if I'm judged for it or persecuted? Or at an even deeper level, I'm not worth it. If I can't get it 100% the time, then, I'm not good at it. And I want to argue with this Uranus-Saturn square that's here at the moment, that it changes the landscape of your belief about yourself and the belief about life and the belief about your potential. And what I want to put across here is, instead of seeing everything in your substructure as there must be something wrong with me and I need to fix it because I'm in a subconscious state of sin, right? I'm not worthy enough, or any of these very negative beliefs that we hold about ourselves that prevent us from stepping into the world and being creative, that we would turn around and say, how is it that I can spend 10 minutes a day and give permission to develop and strengthen the skills and gifts that I have, right? So now what we're doing is instead of seeing where we may want improvement, where there's improvement or growth, right? So having a growth mindset, instead of seeing ourselves as, well, I'm not good at it, see it as, here's where I can give 10 minutes every day to developing and enhancing the skill that it is that I feel I'm not good at, right? And that as I continue to nurture and grow this part of me, I'm feeding and nourishing my soul, and I'm giving to me the thing that I want and I desire. So how many of you out there have a deep desire to want to create YouTube videos and share something, share your ideas, share your thoughts? And how many of you go, nobody's going to like it, there's so many people there, I'm not good at public speaking, etc., etc. How about if we turn it around and we say, this is something that deeply wants to express itself through me. And now I'm going to start looking at myself as exactly where I am. I'm starting out. So how can I give 10 minutes each day to watch a YouTube video, because there are tons of it, of somebody that says how to improve my speaking, how to improve the way I communicate. And so take that video, take a pen and paper and start digesting and feeding yourself with growth, potential, mindset ideas. And then say to yourself, now after a week, take that idea and put yourself in front of the camera and say, I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to express what wants to be expressed. And then start recording. Put yourself out there if that's your desire. Maybe you want to write a blog. Maybe you want to start this. Maybe you want to do that. Don't hold yourself back because of this idea that if I'm not perfect or my self-worth or I lack this, stop. Jupiter retrograde. Change the way you see yourself and the beliefs you hold. Okay? The other thing, the second thing I wanted to talk about here, it's from a book called Finding Flow. It's pretty old in its nature. And the first page, chapter 1, it says the structures of everyday life. Okay, this is the Jupiter part. And it says, if we really want to live, we'd better start at once to try. If we don't, it doesn't matter. But we'd better start to die. And this is from W.H. Auden. Okay. And the reason why that's the quote in the first chapter is because what this book is trying to put across especially through the quotes, is that we have this biological body. Okay. And it's pretty much autonomous in its nature. And it's going to unfold in the way that it's going to unfold, right? That's its trajectory. We don't have much conscious process of that. And it's gonna take time, right? That's from a birth to your death. But what you do have control over is the way that you choose to live that time. And so with Jupiter retrograde over here in Pisces and eventually into Aquarius, and with the North Node, of course, being in Gemini, how do you choose to live your life? What choices are you making every single day that you're not paying attention to that is of I'm not good enough for this, or I am suffering because of that? And where can you begin to give yourself? Where can you begin to feed the thing that nourishes your soul? And just 10 to 20 minutes of that a day, and then build momentum. That's the one thing. Do you want to live, or do you want to prepare to allow yourself to age? And that's where our responsibility comes in. That's responsibility. It's responsibility for your life. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to take that responsibility. But just know that that autopilot state will lead you along a road that those things will be dictated to you. Your cultural ideas, the culture's values, your mom's and dad's values and ideas, their shadow projections and unresolved traumas, all of those things that you've internalized will show up. And they will run your life, like Jung talks about, right? So if you don't make the unconscious conscious, you'll perceive that expression as fate. So this is the intention here with this energy, is to open up to deeper states of self-understanding and self-realization, and to give yourself the permission to be able to live what it is that you feel wants to express itself through you. And it starts with the beliefs you hold about your life and about yourself, Jupiter. The third thing that I wanted to talk about, and this kind of synthesizes these two ideas to cross, which is the idea of being haunted by your past ideas. And so we, as autopilot creatures, our limbic system and primal brain system is responsible for keeping us safe. And so if we allow that state to be present for us consistently in our reality, it leads us to being able to just not take risk, not innovate. And sometimes we can live being possessed by the ghosts of the past. You've heard me talk about this quite a lot recently, because it's such a brilliant way of seeing that, the ancestral karma that we may carry, the unactualized parent that still sits behind us like this and says, hey, you'll fail at it. And then we're possessed by that idea that doesn't belong to us. So where are you still being possessed by the idea of the past? Where are the ghosts of the past still present with you? There's Jupiter retrograde with Saturn and Uranus squaring each other, and Jupiter going into Aquarius is, how can we begin to ask ourselves the question, where am I still being held back by the ideas of other people? Where am I still living according to the values of society as opposed to the values of me? What wants to express itself through me that I'm not giving permission to fully express because I feel that I may be judged or criticized or I'm not getting it right. So what? Creativity, and you heard me talk about this a lot on the channel, Promethean perspective. Be on the leading edge of your change. So this is what I want to leave you with in terms of the more philosophical abstractness of the chart. And I'm going to jump into the chart here and just show you the astrology at the moment as well, okay? Okay, so here we have a look at the chart. This is for the 20th of June, 2021. And as you can see, Jupiter is in its stationary form, okay? So here's what I want everybody to do if you feel motivated by this, right? If you want to understand how this is personally affecting you, this transit, then what you do is you look at the location of Pisces in your chart and what house it's in. So the house looks like this. That's the house. That's the little piece there. And then the sign Pisces, of course. So you want to look at this sign wherever it's in your astrology chart. And then when you want to look at where Jupiter is. And if that's, say, for instance, in the second house, like mine, for instance, my Jupiter's sitting here. Okay. And there it's there. You want to now look at the second house. That's where it currently is. That's what the transit's doing. And then you want to go to where Jupiter is natally in your chart. So let's say Jupiter is in your 7th house natally. Okay, natally mean when you were born. So here's where Jupiter is in your actual chart. So what you would do is you would take the house that Jupiter's in and you would synthesize it through the location of Jupiter natally in your chart. And the reason why this is the case is because, of course, your preconceived ideas and beliefs and ideas about life exist here in the 7th house of relations, how we relate. And Jupiter moving through the 2nd house has to do with the way that we value ourselves in relation to relationships. That's how you would synthesize it if you had Jupiter transiting your 2nd, but you would filter it through the location of Jupiter natally. Okay? So another example, Jupiter's transiting your 4th, and let's say you had natal Jupiter in your 9th house, you would go, okay, the current location of Jupiter is pointing towards my self-image, it's pointing to where my roots are, where my home is, and the traditions that I have about life. And it's in your 9th house natally. So this then will correlate to somebody whose sense of self-image, 4th house Jupiter, is reshaping and influencing their ideas about their beliefs and their points of views, Jupiter in the 9th house. Okay? So that's how you do it individually. You look at the location of the transit and then you synthesize it through the location of where it is in your actual natal chart as well. All right? And that's where I come in. Like if that's not something you can do and you don't feel how to do it, then I can do that for you through the service that I work with. Okay? So that's how that works. All right? And I'm sure there's other astrologers out there that will show you what Jupiter through the houses mean. You can go and watch that and then, synthesize it for yourself. Okay. So 20th of June, Jupiter, it's sitting there at 2 degrees Pisces. As you can see, there's a beautiful grand trine happening between the sun at 29 degrees Gemini and, of course, the moon that sits there in Scorpio, right? There's the grand trine that's happening between those signs. And it's the moon and it's the sun. So it tells me straight away that there's this beautiful harmony between the self-actualization process of the sun. The sun's in Gemini, so we're talking about the completion of Gemini themes. And as you know, Mercury is just about to go direct. So you can see here again that this energy is about the way that we have been processing and making sense of this retrograde. As Jupiter goes retrograde, the sun completes the phase in Gemini and it points to the ending of the Gemini energy. And then it will then point to the Jupiter function for the next 6 months or 5 months. And that will be about how we are looking at our beliefs and ideas relative to this new insight that we received through Mercury, and will be reshaping the internal landscape. And of course, that's where all the big changes are taking place. The Saturn square Uranus. Okay. So there's nothing really to actually point out here, guys. Like we're looking at the astrology, but it speaks for itself. There's the thing I talked about right in the beginning. We're shifting from cognitive function to understanding the substructure of our beliefs, and the cognitive function that we have been making sense of. The insights will directly influence the beliefs of the past and liberate ourselves. That's it. Okay. Then if we look at the 28th of July, which is when Jupiter will move into Aquarius, we have everything now moving through the Leo archetype. And for most of you that understand astrology from an EA perspective, you'll know that the Aquarius energy and the Leo energy has a lot to do with the way that we express ourselves individually. We express ourselves uniquely. So the expression part is the Leo function, and the Aquarius part is the way that individuality comes out. Okay, so there's diversity and there's uniqueness in that. So that's where I'm getting the idea of creative self-expression. That this is how do you unbind yourself from these limiting ideas that prevent you from fully transforming your own life and stepping in to the stage and expressing yourself, your life. Who are you? What's your myth? Beyond the ideas of society and cultural values, etc. Okay. So on the 28th, it goes back into Aquarius, and that's where it will spend the rest of its time edging closer to that as well, to this, like I said, the 16-degree mark, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, there's not much to be said. The Mars opposed Pluto. Sorry, not Mars opposed Pluto. The Mars opposed, there's the Mars 29 degrees Leo in opposition to the 29-degree Jupiter function. And again, that Mars is just pointing towards the instinctual need to break out of those beliefs and those ideas. It's an initiation energy. Mars initiates. So it's the only aspect that Mars is making, and it's pointing directly towards that Leo function, that Aquarius function, pardon me. So during the month of July, we have this, well, August at least, we have this opportunity to really step up and allow our creative impulses to lead us as opposed to the ideas of culture. So this is more about authenticity as opposed to just being somebody that's on autopilot. Okay. And then finally, the last chart I want to show you, of course, the 18th of October. This is when Jupiter now turns direct. And it's not actually at 16 degrees. I thought it was. Maybe I saw something different. But 22 degrees of Aquarius, the retrogrades to on the 18th of October. You can see now the S is gone. It's now moving forward. We also have Saturn forward moving as well, right? And Pluto. So Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter are all moving forward. It's Neptune's turn in a retrograde state and Uranus's turn in a retrograde state. So we still have two outer planets in retrograde form, but Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter are moving forward. So you can see here that a lot of what we will be working on up from now up until October is deep, radical mutation and transformation of our ideas and our beliefs and how we want to present them to the world and how that will contribute to essentially the makeup of our society and our culture. And at a collective and unconscious level, what you will see happen is a lot of material coming to the surface, a lot of trauma coming to the surface. Unresolved emotional complexes will arise with these transits, where these ideas and belief systems are, where you will see people possessed by their past and their idea to not survive and their idea to not be able to innovate, right? You will see these two sides completely. So which one do you want to be on? Right. So when it's actually in its retrograde form, when it starts its retrograde, if we go back over here, you'll see the sun is involved 29 degrees. It makes a trine to Jupiter. And then when we actually look at Jupiter going direct, the sun 25 degrees is trining that Jupiter there. So cool to see that is existing for us. The sun is deeply involved. It's a creative process. It's part of the archetype of Leo. So again, that's where I'm getting this whole creative process from. Okay. Awesome, guys. Well, I really hope that this video, as always, provided some deep thought for you and gave you something to contemplate and to begin an initiation of some deep processing that eventually leads you to an even deeper state of self-empowerment. And as always, if you feel compelled to write in the comment section something that you took from this video that gave you something to think about, please share it. I always love to see the impact that the video has on you and the value that you got from it as well. So if that's something that you notice within this video, please let me know. It's always amazing to read them. Okay. All right, everybody, have an amazing day. Take care. Bye-bye. The things are changing for us at a rapid rate. And there's an opportunity for us to be able to transform our lives and to actually innovate the very nature of what it means to be human, what it means to live in an authentic way, what it means to experience yourself in your highest and deepest truth, which is why I want to invite you onto a call where we get to sit down and see if there's an opportunity for us to support you in that process. Now, for far too long, we've been living under the ideas of what society defines as our deepest purpose, our highest potential. We've been influenced by the narrative that our parents wanted us to be. And there are many of us that are standing on the leading edge right now saying, that is no longer the narrative I want to live. So if you feel that this is a state that you're in, that you're ready to commit to your own transformation and you want to lead in an innovative way in this new world, then I encourage you to click on the link beneath this video and book a free call with us. And you'll be asked to fill out a few questions so that we get a better understanding of where you're at. And on the day of the call, me or one of the people from my team will have a conversation with you and we'll see if there's an opportunity for us to support you in that process.